Alrighty, folks, let's get this going. I'm so pumped yet again for another challenge. Let me pop over here and let you folks see me. Hello, there's my face. Hi, everybody. I'm VooDoo Val, and I am going to be your host this morning for challenge number 4 of the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. And I'm super excited for today. I see so many familiar faces, friendly folks in the chat. I see Anki and Tim, Carol and Sam Peterson. It is good to see all of you folks. Thank you so much for joining. We're going to get into some font pairing today, and I think it's going to be really fun. Font pairing is something that I've touched on a little bit in our challenges. But I usually have fonts ready for you, or I kind of gloss over the finer points of pairing fonts and selecting fonts and things without really diving into the meat of it. So today we are going to dive into font pairing. I'm going to go over some pro tips and tricks and things that you can use to pair fonts. We're going to explore a little bit of the Adobe Fonts site and download, activate some new fonts to use. And by the end of this challenge, you will have your very own little comprehensive file of some really great fonts paired together that you can use on future projects and things. So without further ado, we're going to dive into it. If you check out the description below, you will find a link to the starter file that I am using today. But you will also need your browser because, like I said, we're going to dive into Adobe Fonts. We're going to go through and do a bunch of stuff online. So I'm going to maneuver some of my stuff around here so that we can dive into it. Once you download your Photoshop file, you will see something that looks a little something like this. So this is my file for today. Font pairing with purpose. Explore Adobe Fonts, utilize Adobe Font search tools, and study font packs. Use your new font knowledge to pair fonts and place them together in a fun infographic. So we are going to kind of add some titles and things to our graphics today. And I'm going to be honest with you, when I created this starter file, I created these to look like VHS tapes, but they kind of look like books, honestly. And I think that you can decide what they are for yourselves. Either way, they are items that need titles, and we are going to title them. But what I'd like to do first is to kind of go over some pro tips and things about font pairing, things that I have learned over the years that I think that you will really appreciate. And one thing we're doing a little differently in this challenge is we are actually going to hide our graphics first. And while all the time I always say, let's hide our info tab because we won't be needing that, we are actually going to be using it today. So we're going to take our info and I'm going to start setting up our little our little graphic here that we can show all of our tips and tricks in. Another thing, just to let you folks know, something we are going to have in the Discord today, aside from all of your wonderful, amazing challenge entries, which I've been taking a look at, and I am so impressed with all you folks, truly, is we are going to have this file of mine downloadable, which you can utilize to reference because it's going to have some pretty good information in it. So, font pairing. As I've said many times, I am a painter and illustrator as well as a graphic designer, and font pairing for me is something that was actually really hard for me to get the hang of. I didn't really know the finer points of font pairing and what made fonts look good together. I didn't understand about the different fonts and things, so we are going to dive into that today so I can show you folks all the things that I've learned thus far. First, I'd like to talk about the kinds of fonts, okay? So there are, I'm going to go ahead and hit T on my keyboard to enter into my text tool, and I am just going to start editing this text here. So there are different kinds of fonts, okay? There are serifs. I'm going to make sure that I'm not in caps locks. There are serifs. There are sans serifs. There are script fonts. And then there's a lot of other stuff. These, I would say, are like the three main kinds of fonts that you will most likely encounter. But there are also things like display fonts. So we can put display on here. There's like display fonts. There are monospaced, I believe. Yeah, monospaced fonts, like handwriting fonts, novelty fonts, and stuff. We can put monospaced on here. Monospaced fonts, and with display, I'm also going to put novelty. So I'll put /novelty. And so what do these things mean? Okay, what do all these different things mean? So serifs, I'm actually going to find a serif font that we can use for this. Serifs, if you've ever seen a font that has something like this on it, these little designs that kind of pop out of the edges or corners, tips and ends of all of your symbols and characters, those are serifs. And sans serifs is basically what the font that we are using right now is. You can see sans means none. So sans serifs is there are no serifs. So there's no little cool designs or anything hanging off the edge of our fonts. A script font is something that looks a little like this. I'm sure I have a script font in here. Let me find a good one. Probably something like this. This is a script font. So it's something that's almost like, you know, like cursive or calligraphy, stuff like that. I would say a display or novelty font is going to be something that you would never use a font like this to write a body uh text with. Maybe something like this. This is like a crazy wild font that's just like a bunch of wacky cool designs for your symbols and your characters. You would maybe use this for like a cool decorative title or something, but you would not use this as something that people can read. And then monospaced, I'm not sure if I have an excellent example of monospace, but monospace essentially means all of this might actually be sort of like a monospaced font, except I don't know if the letter M or W really is perfect for this. But essentially, a monospaced font is a font that all of the characters, its horizontal width is kind of the same. So in a lot of different fonts, you have letters like W and P or W and J. The W is always wider than some of the thinner letters, but in a monospaced font, a lot of them are relatively the same exact width, which is kind of cool. So that is the difference. I don't know if I'll add monospaced to this this list for today, but I think we're going to stick with these because these are the fonts that you're probably going to be searching with for sure when it comes to anything that you're going to design. Now, when it comes to pairing all of these things, they have other kinds of fonts that typically go pretty well with other kinds of fonts. Sony says, unless you have a black metal band, yes, exactly. If you're in a metal band, you might use the display and novelty fonts for a lot of things. But aside from that, I can't think of a lot of reasons why you would have a body of text in a display or novelty font. I would say that the serifs are probably very well paired with sans serif. So if I was going to use this font to pair with something else, I could say, let's put a little dash here. I'm going to say paired well with sans serifs. Paired well with sans serifs, and what I'm going to do, I might actually take our text and put it down here just so we can see it a little bit better. And I think I'm also going to change our font to something that is brighter. Let's select this just so we can see it a little better against some of our designs. So pair well with sans serifs. I think you can pair it with a lot of different things, but typically I think like if we come in here and snag a good sans serif, like something that is, maybe I do need to bump this over just so that we can, oops, so that we can see this really well. I'd like to see the change. Serifs, I think, are paired pretty well with sans serifs, and we can come in here and find a good sans serif that might work. Maybe not something like this because it's a little wider. That's actually pretty wide. Let me see if I can find something that would be good. We could do Acumen. I don't want to spend too much time with this. Maybe at like Acumen Pro extra condensed could be interesting. Let me scroll through and find like a good, I wonder if this one would work. That's kind of cool. Or like Berlin Sands could be interesting. This is kind of fancy though, so we don't really want to do something like that. Let's see if we could find like Calibri. Calibri might work. If I let's change our title to something a little larger. Let's change it to something like an 18 for here. You could probably do something like that. So it's, everything is relatively clean and crisp, but we have like sort of like a nice serif header, and then something that is a little more muted with the sans serif for like our body text. That's something that could work pretty well. You might want to put some more time and effort into pairing them, but I'm just kind of giving you some ideas. So serifs pair pretty well, I think, with sans serifs. A sans serif could actually pair pretty well with a script font. So if you're going to do something that is like script here, let's make this one a little larger. Do something like this, and then if we want to pair this with something, we could pair this with a sans serif as well. I would probably want to choose something that's a little thinner than this. I wonder if this one has another weight for us to check out. Let's see if this has another. Yeah, it has like a light. That could work for us. That could be cool. I might even make this a little bit bigger, just to give us a little more oomph there. That's kind of cool. So something that's like a script font paired with a sans serif works pretty good, I think. Just stuff like that. But you'll notice as I make these choices, make these design decisions, I'm really not, how do I put this? You're really not wanting to pair two fonts with things, two fonts together that are battling each other for attention, okay? And notice that when I choose something for a header, it is thicker than what I choose for my body. And you can do this vice versa. You can mix these things up. So if I wanted to have a really chunky font, like let's see if we have, this has got a pretty bold, weight. So if I wanted to change our sans serif here to something that's like super chunky, forgive the spacing on these. We are working with different fonts, and this is just something that is going to happen. But if we wanted to really change our title text or our header text to something really chunky, it'd probably be paired much better with a body text that is super thin. Another thing that is really, really great is, I'm going to write a little note in here, and that is going to be that, let's go ahead and change this actually to like a regular. If you are having a hard time finding two different fonts from different font families to pair together well, you could always choose to pair two fonts from the same family as long as you're using different weights. So I could say, I'm going to put that note in here. You can pair fonts in the same family using different, let's go ahead and bump this over, different weights. That is a pretty good rule of thumb. So if I change this to a regular, I think that looks pretty cool. I think it does. I think it looks nice. And that's kind of what I've done for a lot of these challenges, is like pairing the same exact font together with itself, as long as I have changed the weight so that my header text is very thick and chunky and bold and powerful, and then my body text is something that is easily digestible and a little thinner compared to that. So there's some quick notes there, just some things to kind of keep in mind as you go through pairing fonts. And these are things that I've learned as someone who's not, you know, I'm not a font expert. And I've spent a lot of years trying to make, you know, as a freelance artist, trying to make cool promos for social media or make graphic for my live streams, and things like that. And pairing fonts together and just realizing something about this looks super off, but I can't figure out what it is. These are the rules of thumb that I have learned. Let's see. I do have some notes over here because I want to make sure that I give you guys all of this info. Um, let's see. I think a pretty good rule of thumb as well. I am just going to go ahead and duplicate this and hide one, and then we are going to change. Let's go ahead and come back to our sci in regular. Another point I think that is a pretty good tip is when you create a project, I think that a pretty good amount of fonts to use is 3 fonts. 3 fonts per project, I think, is pretty safe because you have a big title text. Let's see if I can tab over. So we have like a title text, like a big bold title for your project. Titles, you have a header or subheader text, or header or subheader font. Header and subheader, and then you have a body font. All right, so something that is going to announce your project, something that is, I think, a little more decorative than not. Something that you would not use to present information that your viewers are going to be reading and getting, like, extracting knowledge from. So this is like more of a design element, I would say. So I'm going to just write design elements and large bold words. It could be something decorative, something wild and crazy, or it could just be something that is super punchy, super thick, super blocky. A header and subheader is something that you would denote regions of information with, right? So something to denote regions of info, and then the body would be text that explains information to your audience. This could be paragraphs and chunks of text that needs to be legible enough for your audience to really digest it and understand. You never, I think the worst thing is choosing a font that's too decorative or too strange, so that while people are looking at your work, they're struggling to understand and decipher each individual symbol and character rather than just taking in the information that you're presenting to them. So this is for paragraphs, large amounts of info, things like that. So there's some quick rules of thumb for what you can use fonts for. Now, when it comes to stuff like this, I think that you really can have a variation in this. Like maybe you want to use 4 different fonts because that is just what is going to work for your particular project. Maybe you only want to use 2. Typically, I only use 2. And sometimes I'm using the same font in different weights. That's kind of my major rule of thumb. And that works for me. You don't have to constrain yourself to all of these tips that I'm sharing. This is just a way that if you are unfamiliar with font pairing and really struggle with it, you can dive in and have some place to go. Another thing that is, I think, a pretty good rule of thumb as far as your sizes. I'm not really following this here, but let's go into font sizes. When it comes to design, and this is going to vary as well depending on what you are working on, but I would say something that is like a header could be, let's say header size could be like a 35. Not 355. Please never do that. Something that is like a subheader could be a 30, just a rough estimate of something that would look nice. And then your body text could be, maybe I should spell body right. Your body text can be something that is like a 16 to 18 point. And this is gonna, like I said, this is gonna vary depending on the kind of project you're using or the you're doing, or the kind of device you're designing for or something. But I think that rather your font sizes stay exactly the same as what I've listed here, you can see the kind of jump that I'm doing. The body text is small but legible. The subheader is nearing on twice to a little to maybe a little more than 2 times the size of your body text, and then your header size can be just slightly larger than that to show an actual differentiation. And then if you have like a big bold title, like I said, I think those things are more design elements rather than text you're going to be typing a lot of information for. So that can kind of be as large as you want it to be. So just some quick tips of how I like to things I like to keep in mind as I'm searching around. And now I'd like to jump into Adobe Fonts, because it's one thing for me to give you the information, but like, how are you going to go on your own and find this information, find these fonts, and take a look? So as we dive into Adobe Fonts, I'm actually going to move myself over to the other side of my screen, because I would like to be able, I would like to be able to kind of work through this and give you an idea. I think I'm actually going to leave my webcam where it's at, because I want to be able to show you that view family button over there. So maybe we'll just bump it over just a tad. I'll bump myself over like that, little behind the scenes action going on. So when it comes to actually hunting for fonts, there's a lot of really great resources on Adobe Fonts that you can utilize in order to search things around. There's a lot of visual tags here in Adobe Fonts that can allow you to select fonts very easily, so you can see what does geometric mean, what does rough mean, what is Art Deco, what is funky, futuristic, marker. All of these things would be really great, and you can simply click them and then come through and find fonts that are similar to that visual denotion there, which is really cool. And then you can just click it and it will turn it off. You can view more if you want to see like black letter, if you want to look at black letter, which is a favorite kind of vibe of mine. I really love this one actually, the JAF herb, and I don't think I have this. I'm about to get this for sure. For sure I'm gonna get this, and it comes with a few different weights. I highly recommend, if you're looking for a font that you can use for a project, or just a font to have for any amount of projects in the future, try to find a nice font that has a few different weights, because like I said, you might want to use the same font for all of your different font choices in your project, but in different weights. And if you have a font that can do that, rather than a font that just has the one regular or just regular and bold, I think it would help you in the future. But you can come through and do all these things. As you can see, we've got our classifications. If it will load for me, we've got our classifications over on the side. And you can go through and you can click serif or sans serif. Oh, I think I have black letter selected still. So you can go through and you can find serifs. You know, you can find monospaced. You can find, yeah, see here, you can see kind of the example of all the similar widths. You can come in, you can find scripts and look through these and find things. You can also alter, maybe I want a script that is very, has like thick portions to it, so we can push that weight a little bit. You can search through here. You can also change your view so that you're looking through just images. You can hide the images and look through the grid and just see the font itself in preview mode, which is really great. But one thing that is super awesome to do is to come in and look at font packs. Highly recommend looking at font packs, because font packs are not like font families where you're going and looking through different fonts that belong to the same family. A font pack, all of these font packs have different vibes and different themes and things, and you can see how somebody else has paired fonts together and used fonts to kind of create a vibe, which is really cool. So if we want to do like this new naturalism font pack, you can come in and see all of these different fonts from different people and different families, and how they are used. There's usually an image that kind of shows them all working in harmony, working together. And typically, if you snag yourself a font pack, you already have fonts that look really great together, and you can activate all fonts and test them out in your project. So this was a lot of info for this challenge rather than kind of designing something, but your challenge as far as what we are building today is to come in to this folder here. And I want you to label some items. If you don't want to label these tapes or books here, I would say you can come in and just pair fonts together. Just show us what the fonts look in the header, subheader, body text format. Really put some effort into this and create some really great looking font pairs, and you could utilize this file for yourself going forward for all of your projects, because you know it's full of fonts that look great together. So little odd challenge, but that is all the time I have for you today, folks. I hope that you have enjoyed this. I hope that this has been crammed with a lot of information for all of you who struggle with pairing fonts. In the Discord, I am going to post a big comprehensive document of pro tips and tricks for pairing fonts that you can use. So definitely join the Discord and check it out. And I can't wait to see which fonts you pair together today. So I will see you folks tomorrow for another challenge. And until next time. Adios, everybody.